Representative McKinley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have three witnesses that's going to help me on this bill. It's okay if they sit here at the table. We can go down through it. Thank you. They're very, very capable, competent, and knowledgeable about the subject, something that I can't always say about some of the things I say. But thank you for that. This is a bill that restores funding to our education. With that, I'm ready.
Is there any questions from Representative? Representative Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative McKinley, on the back page of the fiscal note, it talks about the transfer to the State Education Fund for 1213, and it lists each department and what types of cuts will be made. Could you please give us a list of what areas in those departments you'd like to cut? Specifically, I'm curious about human services. Are you going to cut the developmental disability portion, or are you going to cut TANF, or are you going to cut food stamps? What is it that you're looking to cut?
Representative McKinley.
There will be no services cut. That's a beautiful thing about this. No one actually suffers. Because Amendment L002 that you have is actually the bill. Every cut, if that is, it's not actually a cut. It's, what's a good word for cut? It's not sacrifice. We're actually taking 7.9% of the salaries of all state workers, 7.9% of the per diem that we give ourselves, or we got inherited, accumulated a per diem raise in these hard times. So we're simply cutting the salaries 7.9%. Private sector has done that all over the country. Counties are doing it, county commissioners, county workers, voluntary making cuts to keep everyone working, to keep the services, the programs going. So this doesn't cut any of the services or programs, no disability, no education. It does restore. The salary cuts will be restored back into the education fund. And as we know, education is the #1 primary thing that we can do for our country, is educate our youth.
Representative Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative McKinley, as far as I know, the amendment has not been offered, and so I'm speaking to the bill that we have in front of us. So what I was asking earlier, could you please respond to my questions as to what you're going to be cutting in human services?
If the bill, if the amendment is passed, there will be no cut in human services.
Representative Rudd.
I would move L002.
Yeah, we do have to do testimony. Sorry. Is there any other questions for Representative Rudd?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we are doing testimony on this bill, Representative McKinley, could you please tell me on page 2 of the fiscal note, there is a listing of all of the different departments that will be cut. Could you please explain to me, within those departments, what areas of state government you'll be cutting, specifically within the area of human services?
The salaries of the state workers and human services.
Representative Rudd. Is there any further? Representative Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of see what you're trying to do here, Representative McKinley. And so that I think the 7.9% reflects the current unemployment rate.
That's correct.
You know, even in the best economy, unemployment hovers around 4%, 3 to 4%. I mean, are we setting the precedent here that basically every year we're going to look at what the unemployment rate is and cut the salaries back of the state workers, even when we have a booming economy?
Representative McKinley.
No, the sunsets in 5 years. Will be 7.9% one time, and then all new hirees, the base will be cut 7.9%, and then sunsets in 5 years.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll enter the public testimony phase. And right now, Representative McKinley, I only have the 3 sitting next to you signed up to testify, and they're all 4. So we'll just start out with Ellie Hillhouse. Is that correct? Hillhouse.
Good morning. Thank you guys for having us. a little nervous, so bear with me. I'm from Trinidad High School. It's in southern Colorado. It's like the southernmost town here. And we come from a small high school that doesn't see a lot of, opportunities. I'm just here to talk about this bill and the fact that it's putting money back in education, and that with any educational system we need good teachers. And the effect of good teachers is incredible and profound, both personally and for students across the board. And I realize that these cuts that are being made in districts, across the state and the country aren't your guys' fault. And but we're the future. We're the next generations. We're the next you guys. And I know personally, and for my siblings and for younger generations, I want every single opportunity I can have to, explore the world and get programs into our schools that are good and educational, and to have teachers that can, provide that for us. And so this bill is putting money back, into schools for teacher salaries, for opportunities for kids. And so I'm in favor of this bill.
Thank you. Are there any questions from this? Thank you very much. Representative Sonberg.
I just want to let you know that there are therapists that if you desire to be one of us, I can hook you up.
Next we have Gina, and I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm going to let you pronounce that for me if you would.
Hoffpower.
Hoffpower.
I'm just glad you said my first name right.
All right, thank you. And you go ahead.
So I'm Gina Hoffpower. I'm a junior at Trinidad High School. I just wanted to talk about the facilities, or the lack thereof, that we have. We have very limited resources, and I'm involved in a lot of programs, such as honors classes and on the art program, so I get to see the whole wide range of it. Our chemistry lab hasn't been updated since the 1970s, and that's older than some of our teachers. It is a problem. We don't have any working gas burners. 2 out of our 10 sinks don't even work, and it does affect our education. It does affect the experience. Also, the computers in our lab are over 10 years old, very dated, don't really work. Many of the students usually have to do their own work at home if they want to find resources, anything. And also the art program. We don't have a photography class, we don't have drawing, painting, graphic design. All we have is an art class. And we, of course, do our best with what we have, but even then, a lot of our art supplies are shared from the high school to the middle school. It's hard. And I know these sound like just a bunch of little things, but it really does affect the quality of our education and the experience of high school and just all this learning. I guess that's all. Sorry, not a very good conclusion there.
Representative Gardner.
Yes, thank you. I want to tell you how much we appreciate you coming here to testify and participating in the process and beginning to think about these things. And as you think about the need for money in public education, I want you to know that we think about those things too. Here's the problem, and I want you to go away from here. I just ask you to ponder this over the next several days, because what you're asking us to do is make budget cuts because we only have so much money. The people of Colorado have dictated, and that's not even a good word for it. I mean, they mandated to us that we have a certain amount of money to be spent, and it falls to us to divide it up. So as I look at my sheet here of where money will come from if we do this, I see that, and Representative McKinley has another idea perhaps, but right now what I have in front of me is that we'll take nearly $50 million from higher education. I'm guessing that the three of you may wish to attend college and perhaps, and I hope, in Colorado. We will take $50 million from corrections, and while it is unfortunate that we have to spend money in the Department of Corrections, the safety of your community and your state depends upon us being able to do that, as well as our ability to deal with and humanely treat those who are incarcerated. And I go down the list. As I understand, Representative McKinley's proposed amendment. What it would do is cut the salaries, and it would cut my per diem, and that's fine. That's great with me because this is a part-time, full-time, part-time paying job. But for our public safety personnel, for those who are providing services to the developmentally disabled, it would be 7% or so, which for a family budget in these times is probably not chump change. I would encourage you to ask your parents what a 7 or 8% hit on their budget would be. All I'm saying is, I'm going to be a yes on this bill, but this bill involves choices, and they are difficult choices, and it is a zero-sum game. We give more money to education as we try to adequately fund that. It means that health and human services will suffer in order for your education to be funded. These are not easy decisions, and so I only say that to you because I feel like it is something that as you leave here today and you hear how people vote, know that it's not because we don't support the full funding of public education, but rather because there are many different needs and priorities that we are having to allocate, and the resources are limited. Thank you.
Questions for Mrs. Hoffbauer? Ms. Hoffbauer, sorry. Already got you married and out the door. If not, we'll move on to Cody Johnson.
Hi, I'm a senior at the high school, and I'm a fellow school. Really, all I wanted to say was I wanted to touch on the fact that what Gina was saying is true, and that our district is in a point where we need to make huge cuts. They're talking about cutting anywhere from 15 to 20 teachers. I mean, obviously that means that we can't improve our curriculum. And to me that bothers me because students should get every opportunity, and for the lack of teachers is only going to hinder the educational experience for the younger generations. So that's pretty much it.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson, Representative Long.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for being here. Before I got this job, I was a teacher for 29 years, and I sit on the education committee, and I know how desperately we want to do something about school funding. Are you aware that this would create about $198 million? So you know what the fiscal note is, and that's a significant amount of money. But just to let you know that over the last 3 years, the state has cut close to $1 billion. So we're just $1 billion from where we were 3 years ago. And our standing amongst the states is, we're at the bottom of the barrel pretty much when it comes to, if we compare Colorado to other states when it comes to education funding. And are you aware of the Lovato case that was just determined? So the Laval case was a case that went to Supreme Court and saying that, and it ruled that Colorado needs to do something about adequate and thorough uniform funding across the state. So we're all working on that and trying to figure out what the best remedy for our school funding is. It's not that we are not working on that and trying to figure out what we can do. And Representative McKinley, and so I'm just asking, I hope you all know that these are the things that have happened over the last few years, and it's not because we are not really interested in trying to find adequate funding. And I have a question for Representative McKinley. I see that you did not include the Department of Education on this list, and you know they have grown by 100 FTEs in the last 6 years. So I was wondering why you did not include the Department of Education on this list.
Representative McKinley.
That was in the original bill. We did include the Department of Education because it put money into the Department of Education. In the amendment, the Department of Education employees will be cut 7.9%.
Okay.
The same as everyone else, the Department of Corrections. Can we go ahead with a little bit of wait to wrap up the journey?
Thank you.
All right.
Are there any further questions for the students here testifying? Oh, first of all, thank you. I know it's a big chore to come up here and testify in front of this group. But I will tell you, the limited resources that you have in your school, your teachers have done a good job for you to come here and do this, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. On that, public testimony. Oh, Representative Salon.
Thank you. I just want to thank Representative McKinley for thinking out of the box. I don't know how I'm going to vote yet, but things are desperate when it comes to education, and I think these students that came to testify put a face on it. And for those people that don't sit on education committee, it's good to hear from students to see how all our cuts are affecting our kids. So I want to thank Representative McKinley for bringing this forward. And
Further discussion? Not the amendment, or the testimony phase is closed. Next, we are to the amendment phase. Representative McKinley. Do you have any amendments? Representative Sommer.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I think it is L002 that needs to be moved, so I move.
Amendment L002 dies for lack of a second. Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to explain to Representative McKinney and to the students why I did not second Amendment 002 or do anything. I also want to thank you for coming. I know it's hard to come up here and face a panel like this, and you're very articulate. You make a compelling case. And I have a 17-year-old in high school. She's got an economics book that's 11 years old. And you know how much the world's changed in 11 years. We don't fund education adequately in Colorado. That's just, it's terrible. It's appalling, especially in a state as affluent as ours. But my concern with 002 here is that funding education is an obligation of everybody in Colorado. It's an obligation of all the taxpayers in the state of Colorado, and Amendment 002 funds the bill by making public employees pay that cost. And like Representative Gardner, I'm not concerned about the reduction of my salary or the per diem. I came here to serve, not to make money, obviously. But I am concerned about having just the employees in the state of Colorado who are working hard, who aren't well paid, who are providing important services to people, be the source of funding for this. This is an obligation of everybody in the state of Colorado. You are all of our children. You're our future. And I think we need a different solution. So that's why I did not support 002 going forward.
I would offer amendment J001.
Oh, it is the appropriate, okay.
I'll second it.
Amendment J001 to be moved by Representative Becker and seconded by Representative Gardner. And that is the appropriations. On 1109, is there any opposition to amendment J001? Seeing opposition, David, can you please call the roll?
Representative Del Grosso.
Yes.
Representative Ferrandino.
No.
Representative Gardner.
Yes.
Representative Hollenhorst.
No.
Representative Levy.
No.
Representative Looper.
Yes.
Representative Pavone.
No.
Representative Solano.
No.
Representative Sonberg.
Yes.
Representative Tyler.
No.
Representative Vaught.
Yes.
Representative Giroux.
No.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Amendment J001 fails, 6-7. Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative McKinley, I kind of watch bills as we go through the session, and I rate them. And I believe you may have the prize for the most fiscally inappropriate legislation that we're putting over today. The higher education cut that you would be looking at is $8 million short of the cut that we tried to avert with the current law bill, because the governor was proposing in November a $60 million cut, and we were able to alleviate that cut. What you will be doing to the developmentally disabled in Colorado with this bill takes my breath away. What you'll be doing to public safety with this bill takes my breath away. You are basically gutting core functions of government with this bill. And the fact that we have spent time on this bill, that staff has spent time on this bill, agriculture will be cut by this bill. Corrections will be cut by this bill, and a lot of people feel like corrections should be cut. I get it, but it's a public safety issue. Military affairs will be cut by this bill. I can't tell you how disappointed I am. I've been working since November. I've been working since November to make sure that we took care of what we needed to take care of. I'm a Republican. I don't like a lot of government, but I do understand the need for government. And I see this bill as being reckless. I will be a no. And with all due respect to the young people that came here, I hope you're getting extra credit. I apologize that you, I hope, I know you're taking time out of your schedules. I know you're going to have to make up work for today. And I'm sorry, but I can't vote for this bill.
Representative Sonberg.
Actually, Mr. Chair, I'll wait until it's appropriate when the amendment phase is over to have my comments.
I will see that everybody's agreeing with that. I will close the amendment phase. Representative Representative Song.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Probably should have called on someone else before me first. Those previous comments, I think, are quite frankly out of line. Anytime a representative wants to bring a bill and staff wants to work on a bill and has an idea to think outside the box or inside the box or think any way they need to represent their district and do what they think is right, I think is an appropriate action. Now, whether we vote on it in the affirmative or not is one thing, but to classify a bill specifically, Madam Vice Chair, with all due respect, the way you did, I think is inappropriate. And I don't want to go down this road of having a battle here, but I, in defense of Representative McKinley, tried to find a way to think outside the box to fund education. Whether we agree with it, whether it takes cuts in a number of different areas, and quite frankly, I'm not going to go down that road, but I think there's potential to still make cuts in those departments. Across the board may not be appropriate, but that's not the discussion we're having here. My discussion is I applaud Representative McKinley for trying to find an answer to our education issues and where we cannot fund education the way we need to, where we have old books, where we have classrooms that quite frankly don't have enough computers, and schools that don't have enough computers for children to learn how to become at least somewhat proficient in utilizing the internet. I'm going to be voting for you, Bill. It has some issues, but quite frankly, the common sense approach that Representative McKinley brings to say, look, why don't we just cut this percent and move it to education? I think it has some possibilities, but I want to make sure that it's very clear that no matter who the member of this legislature is, if they bring a bill, someone says that my bill that I brought yesterday may have been the worst bill or irresponsible bill. But the fact of the matter is, as we represent our districts, I think to characterize a bill and the intent of a legislator is inappropriate, with all due respect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, as we move forward, I mean, we still have the bill sitting for action. There are several things that could be done. The appropriations could be added on the floor. They can be added in the Senate. As we move forward, we can actually take a new look at J002 as well. So there's still several actions, reopening the amendment phase, several actions we can do. So I'm going to go through the list. There's a lot of people that want to say things on this. So Representative Pavone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative McKinley, I think your goal, your purpose, your end goal is laudable. And for the students here, I think every single one of us looks for savings, for the ability to shift priorities so we can invest more in our education system. But it is a dynamic system. And it is, when you take resources away from one area and redirect it to the other area, you're going to have consequences either intended or unintended. And it's our role to sort of try to figure those out. And I hope that this, particularly for you, is a learning experience about how a dynamic system works. Because in this case, I think all 13 of us would agree with the goal of putting more funding into education. I think what we disagree about is how to do that. And the means to the end and the devil being in the details is an important component of any solution. And so I think what we're struggling most with is this the right way to achieve this? Because there's 100 different ways to do this. 1,000, 1,000,000 different ways. There's an unlimited number of ways. And that's what this process is all about, is trying to figure out, can we get a majority of our members in each house and the Senate and the governor to agree on which way is the best way to do that. And so while I certainly do support the goal of the bill, I don't support the means to achieve that goal. And I don't support the means because tying the salary reduction percentage to the employment rate, I'm having trouble just trying to figure out the correlation between the two, as well as doing a across-the-board cut, which I think doesn't reflect the dynamic system that we have in the legislature. The dynamic system meaning a system which has multiple inputs and multiple outputs and doesn't reflect the complex system that we work. So I'll be a no vote on this bill.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I am also a no vote on the bill when we get to that motion. And I think, unfortunately, the problem we all have with trying to adopt the appropriation clause and seeing the cuts that it would take to all these other departments just illustrates all the trade-offs, the difficult job we have in trying to balance all these competing needs and interests that we have in this state. And I think this bill brings into perfect focus the problem that we have, which is that we have a finite amount of revenue that we're constitutionally allowed to spend, and we have ever-increasing needs with students that need an education, people that need health care, people that need mental health services, public safety. We have an ever-increasing number of needs and a finite amount of revenue to satisfy those. And the trade-offs required by the approach in this bill, which is just pick a number that happens to be the unemployment rate on some particular day and then just cut everybody, doesn't recognize the complexity of the problem that we have. And we're kind of in the middle of the budget process here right now. This House passed it, the Senate's considering it. I think it's our job to look for every bit of savings and unnecessary spending we can and put every last penny that we can find into education. And I hope that's what we've all done very diligently as we've looked at this budget. But I just can't support a bill that does take this arbitrary approach and doesn't recognize the different needs that we have for the many, many people that we serve in Colorado.
Representative Ferrandino. Representative McKinley.
Please look at this bill, like the amendment. No cuts to education. No cut to the Department of Corrections. No cut to the Department of Human Services. What happens down on the farm when your cow price goes down, the wheat price and the milo and feed price goes down? Do you quit feeding your cattle? Do you quit buying diesel? No. You cut wherever you can. You make tiny a little less. Finally it comes down. You don't give a bigger Christmas present to the kids. And finally it comes down. You and mom will live with less. Simply what this does, let's keep education, Department of Correction, Department of Human Services, go down, Department of Ag. Not one cut to the Department of Ag. Not one cut to the Department of Law. Because we're cutting the salaries. In the Department of Law, the top 7 people in the Department of Law, their salary is $950,000 a year. What's wrong with cutting the salary a little? That's correct. Maybe we ought to amend this to say all salaries below or above $50,000 a year. Would that be acceptable? All salaries above a level when a guy's making $120,000, $130,000 a year. Could you cut that a little and give it to the education? Could you give it to the kids? It's a pretty nice group. I'm proud of it. But you, each and every one of you, have the same thing in your district. Each and every one of you have 3 students that can do this. And each and every one of them has computers that are old, labs that are old, some of them on 4-day school weeks, because we're cutting and we cut and we cut and we cut. Let's quit cutting these programs. Let's start keeping them going. And look, what about the per diem? You know, that's pretty sad we give ourselves a per diem raise. It's pretty sad we hired 100 more employees in the Department of Education, hired them right across the street. So you cut 24 down there. President Juro, don't send your newsletter to my district.
Members, there are several choices that we can do in here. That we can move the bill to the floor, which I think is the appropriate motion to move to the floor so we can discuss Amendment J002, which is what the sponsor is wanting to add on. I think it's an interesting fact. I do believe we need to have this discussion, and I believe having it on the floor would be a discussion we all should move forward with. But I understand there are some issues in here, and I think there's issues to be worked out, but funding for education is important. And if we can at least have the discussion, and maybe we can figure out a way that might make this bill a little better for us all, I think that might be the appropriate way to move forward. Representative Songbird.
Thank you. I move House Bill 1109 committee to hold.
Second. House Bill 1109, moved by Representative Songbird, second by Representative Becker. Representative Ferentino.
Thank you. I move substitute motion to PI House Bill 1109.
Second.
Substitute motion to PI House Bill 1109 is moved by Representative Ferentino and seconded by Representative Hollingworth. Representative Hollingworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I second that reluctantly, and I want to thank you, Representative McKinley, for bringing this bill, and I particularly want to thank all of you for being here to talk to us about this. It's an important issue, and it has highlighted the right problem that we have. I can't agree with the solution, but I think it's important to begin to work on it and to come up with our best ideas, and I think we need to continue to do that, and I think you've started a good trend, Representative McKinley, and I think these kinds of issues need to be worked out in committee and hopefully in committees of reference where we really have people with a pretty good idea of how to solve these problems. So although I think this is not the time or the solution, I applaud the attempt.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to PI? No? Mr. Meehan, please take the roll.
Representative Del Grosso. No. Representative Ferentino.
Yes.
Representative Gardner.
No.
Representative Hollingworth.
Yes.
Representative Levy.
Yes.
Representative Looper.
No.
Representative Pabon.
Yes.
Representative Solano.
Yes.
Representative Sonnenberg.
No.
Representative Tyler.
Yes.
Representative Vaught. No. Representative Giroux.
No.
Mr. Chair.
No. Motion to PI is lost. Back to the underlying motion to send House Bill 1109 to the floor with a favorable recommendation. Representative Gardner.
Yes, thank you. And I know that the hour is getting late and we need to be on the floor, but I want to say, Representative McKinley, I don't know that I'll be a yes on the floor, but I think this bill could be a good context to have this discussion. How much money should we be spending on education? How much money should we be spending on higher ed? How much money should we be spending on corrections? I think there's a great discussion outside the context of having to deal with it in our annual budget discussions where the pressure is and there's tremendous and huge amounts of work. I look forward to having this discussion with your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Representative McKinley.
Thank you. Representative Levy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to make a few more comments here before we send this to committee as a whole, because I guess I would ask members of this committee where you were when we were debating the long bill. I know we were all trying to put more money into education. I know I was trying to put more money into education. I think we found about $4.5–5 million that we were all willing to vote on to cut departmental budgets. We went through every department's budget in that long bill. Every issue was conceivably, potentially on the table. I didn't see, what is this, $198 million? I didn't see a proposal for cuts. You know, 10 million maybe, I saw that. But where were you all? And now we're going to bring this bill to the floor, and we're going to have a debate on a bill that has a 7.9% cut to departments, and we're going to have a long protracted debate, and we're all going to talk about how important education is. And we all know here, sitting here, that we are not going to pass this bill. We cannot pass this bill. We cannot. And thank you, Representative McKinley, for sponsoring this, for bringing this issue forward. I think we have to cast an honest vote. We don't have time to have debates for the sake of debates. We had a debate on a long bill. It was a healthy, vigorous, appropriate debate. I wish we had more money. I wish we could have found that money. But I'm going to be a no vote on this. It's not because I don't want to fund education, but we can't find those cuts. And this bill isn't going to magically make the money appear.
Representative Slaughter.
Thank you. This is really difficult because, of course, I would want more money for education, but I'm looking at the cut to higher ed. $50 million to higher ed. Higher ed's hanging by a thread now in the state alone. I mean, I want my grandkids to be able to go to college, and, you know, it's getting to the point where it's almost unaffordable. So there's so many needs in our state. Even if you cut all the salaries by 50%, would that be enough? Probably not. We are so underfunding education in this state that I applaud Representative McKinley for his creative thinking, but I just, $198 million compared to $1 billion is just not anywhere close to what we need. It's a drop in the bucket to what we need. So like I said, I'm still struggling, but $50 million to higher ed, a cut to $50 million to higher ed. I mean, this doesn't solve the problem. So.
Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative McKinley, just so you know, I don't send my newsletter to anybody but my constituents, just so you know.
Thank you.
When we were doing the budget negotiations, Representative Becker and I voted to send $23 million, and Representative Levy voted to send $23 million remaining at the end of the budget negotiations to the state ed fund. The next day, Representative Becker and I were voted down because those dollars went various other places and they came out of the state ed fund. My dedication to education has been solid, and it's been true to all of this. Listening to the conversations that are going on right now, I'll vote for you, Bill, to the floor. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be a yes on the floor. And that doesn't mean that my opinion has changed. But just because I see the conversation that's going on right now, I'll vote your bill to the floor.
Representative Ferrandino. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I wasn't going to say anything, but after sitting 3 years on the Budget Committee and respecting the work the Budget Committee does to try and balance the need of the state, I have huge problems with this bill. One, I don't think we should ever take a hatchet to state government. If we want to cut, let's figure out programs we want to cut. And to say that cutting salaries for people who are making $20,000, $30,000 a year has no impact on people is not true. There are state workers throughout the state, in your district and my district, who cutting 8% of their salary is a significant cut to them and a significant impact. The bill that's sitting now isn't doing that, and I know you'd like to offer that amendment, but the bill sitting now is cutting a significant amount of money. It's taking a hatchet to state government. we have an issue, and I agree with the comments that were said today, that we are underfunding education. I think we all agree with that. But this approach is not the right way to do it. There are things that each one of us in this committee and each one of us in the legislature would sit at a table and say, we don't need to do anymore, we can cut. But we can't get 33 and 18 and 1 to agree on it. You always heard Jack Palmer always say, I'll let you know where we can cut, and then we'll give you proposals, and it won't get through the legislature because one legislator from one party or the other party or one area doesn't like those cuts. It's easy to take the simple approach and just cut everything arbitrarily at some percentage. It's actually hard to spend the time and actually go through each line item and make the decisions on where we're going to fund and where we're not going to fund. This takes the easy road to try and just say, cut 7.9. And it's going to have a devastating impact. Even if you can't get your amendment on to do it to salaries, that has a devastating impact on families across the state who are relying on their salaries, who have seen no increases, have seen para shifts, they've seen furloughs. And this is not a responsible way to deal with this issue. We have a real issue. Our education funding is way too low, but this is not the way to deal with it. This is going to devastate state government, and that means devastating the society and the state we live in.
Representative Bott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative McKinley, I will vote for your bill to go to the floor, only because I want to hear 65 people hear the discussion we've had here today, and hopefully they'll be attending the discussion over there. Thank you, students, for being here, and I hope you're starting to see the complexity of the problem that started 15 years before you were born. Thank you.
Representative Carter.
Yes, thank you. And I know this is becoming extended, Mr. Chair, but this is important. One of the reasons I want to see this go to the floor is because this is the Lovato discussion. There are people sitting here, and there are people sitting on the floor who think that the Lovato litigation is properly founded and that something that would come out of there that would mandate that the General Assembly fund education at a greater level. I think this notion about whether it's underfunded or not properly funded, that's a public policy discussion, and those are pejorative value judgments. But what your bill will do, Representative McKinley, will force a discussion around what the Lovato litigation, if it were to be successful, I think it's unconstitutional, by the way, but were it to be successful, we would have to engage in this exercise. And I hear people already talking about irresponsible and what are we going to do? And I'm looking forward to this debate, Representative McKinley, because I want some people who have supported the Lovato litigation to have to stand in the well and say, yes, that's the kind of cut I want to take on funding for the developmentally disabled. Those are the kind of cuts that I want to make on state employees. We're going to do that in order to fund public education in the way that I think it ought to be done. That's what I want to hear them say. Because it's harder than that. And the Joint Budget Committee does engage in a very difficult task to bring us where we are. So again, I'm probably not going to be a yes on the floor, but I like Representative Bott, want to see 65 people have that discussion.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Lee. Representative McKinley.
We talked about the axe. It's a dull axe, and somebody's going to get it. We're going to cut. Well, let's don't cut. Let's bleed just a little. Let's all of us bleed just a little. And you talk about devastating state government. When you have a choice, devastating state government, devastating your country, let's don't devastate our country. Let's let our state government bleed just a little and see if we can't come together to this. And whatever it takes, we'll work on any amendment, anything that we can do. Now that I've got your attention, let's get together and see what we can do and make some honest decisions. We couldn't do it in the long bill because, thank goodness, we don't have the ability to look out and say, well, we're going to take a little from you, we're going to take a little from you. We take from departments, so we had to do this by law so that everyone was treated equally. That's what we need to be doing, is treating equally. We were created equal, and if we treated each other equal instead of some get more, some get this, and some get less, let's be equal. Thank you.
Representative Farragino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative McKinley, you say about being honest. This is not being honest. You're saying this is no impact. Cutting this is not being honest. This is, you could have made these cuts during the budget. You could have made these amendments. You could have, we've seen it before, across the board cuts. You could do that. You could do it through personal services line items. You could have done it that and put a footnote on saying that intent was to cut salaries. You didn't do it then. So don't say that this can't be done during the budget. It could be
Let's not
done.
argue about it.
Well, I just, we know, this is,
Representative Farragino.
well, if we're going to have a conversation about this, we should be honest about it. We shouldn't be saying things that aren't true.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Meany, please call the roll.
Representative Del Grosso.
Yes.
Representative Farragino.
No.
Representative Gardner.
Yes.
Representative Hollenhorst.
No.
Representative Levy.
No.
Representative Looper.
Yes.
Representative Pagone.
Yes.
Representative Solano.
Yes.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Yes.
Representative Tyler.
No.
Representative Vaught.
Yes.
Representative Solano.
Not because I don't think we need it, but this just does not solve the problem, so I'll be a no.
Representative Giroux.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. House Bill 1109 passes to the floor 7-6.